Good evening, I'm Bilal Zubaidi, and hello to our distinguished guest, faculty and staff members and members of the audience. When it comes to Benazir Bhutto, former Chancellor of Zabist and former Prime Minister Pakistan, on whose birthday today we have all assembled to commemorate her person, her life and times and career are out there for all to judge. An educated female who dares to challenge the status quo in a country like Pakistan is a cause for celebration on any day. Her passion, vigor, enthusiasm, and valor stand tall, making one but wonder how, after much suffering, she continued to remain the effervescent and resilient woman she always was, staying true to her name, Benazir, one who cannot be compared. Our eminent speaker for the day, writer, journalist, and professor, Dr. Shahida Kazi, alongside who are present Vice President Zabist, Dr. Amanat Ali Jalbani, and Faculty, Department of Social Sciences, Zabist Karachi, Dr. Riaz Ahmed Sheikh. Dr. Shahida Kazi is the former chairperson of the Department of Mass Communication, Karachi University, and former senior news editor, Pakistan Television Corporation. She is the author of 3 books, namely Television Journalism, Pakistan Studies in Focus, and Black, White, and Grey, amongst many other writings for journals and magazines. Dr. Kazi currently serves as the head of the Media Studies and Media Management Department in the Institute of Business Management, IOBM or CBM. Welcome, Dr. Kazi, to the Karachi campus of Shahid Zulfikar Ali Bhutto Institute of Science and Technology. Zabist has a total of 5 campuses now, one being in the city of Dubai, UAE, and it continues to remain one of the leading institutions offering educational services and options to people from all walks of life. Without further ado, I would like to invite Vice President Zabist, Dr. Amanat Ali Jalbani, to come to the rostrum and commence the session.
Welcome all. Thank you very much, guests. My special thanks to the guest speaker, Madam Shahida Kazi, who has very kindly spared her precious time to share her ideas about Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto. Madam Shahida Kazi has a long affiliation with Bhutto family. She has long experiences which she will be sharing today with us about Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto. Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto was a great visionary leader. She was a democratic institute for the students of politics all over the world. She was the only internationally renowned and recognized Muslim leader who was awarded more than 26 international awards and degrees. Benazir Bhutto Shaheed had guided the nation and encouraged the masses to remain steadfast against an oppressive system. She fell victim to the menace of terrorism, but refused to bow before it. Assassination of Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto was a sacrifice to democracy. She sacrificed her life to feel her countrymen free from dictatorship. She sacrificed for strengthening democracy in the country and fought against the terrorism and for the rights of common people. Mohtarma was a symbol of national unity and integration, and the best tribute that the nation can pay to her is commitment to the ideology which she advocated strongly in her life and the values she promoted consistently in her career. Shaheed Benazir Bhutto had forgiven all her opponents, including those who had tortured her and her family during their terms of office, and adopted a policy of dialogue and reconciliation. She gave a roadmap for Pakistan's prosperity. The sacrifice of Mohtarama Benazir Bhutto will not go in vain, and the democracy will not only prevail in the country in true sense, but it will also develop its strong roots. I'll end here the quotation of Mohtarama Benazir Bhutto. Quote, "I have a great faith in the youth of Pakistan. I know the youth will redeem my faith in them. You, the youth, are our successor generation. To you, we pass the torch of leadership, our democratic vision, baptized in the sacred blood of our martyrs. Dear students, dear youth, fight for what you believe, fight for democracy, fight for our exploited and impoverished people. Remember, it is better to live like a lion for one day than live like a jackal for thousands of years. I wish you all success and happiness, my dear daughters and sons of Pakistan," unquote. Once again, I thank you all and God bless you all.
Thank you, Dr. Jalbani. I would now like to invite our distinguished guest, Dr. Shahida Qazi, to please come to the rostrum and address this gathering.
Thank you all very much. It gives me a lot of pleasure to be here and to be addressing your distinguished gathering. So, as I was just talking to Dr. Jalbani just now, coming here, seeing the old Bhutto home, you know, it revives a lot of memories. Because among my earliest memories as a child, I remember Mr. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's father and his mother. You know, they were very good friends of my parents and of my grandparents. And they were very frequent visitors to our home. And I just remember a Lady Bhutto, you know, she was a very, very dignified lady, very distinguished lady. I don't know, you must have seen her pictures, but she really was very graceful. And then, of course, Nusrat Bhutto. I remember the first time I saw her, you know, I was a very small child. She was newly married, and my father had invited them to dinner. So I was really, when I saw Nusrat Bhutto, I was really taken aback, because I think she was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. You know, she was dressed in a pink sari, and she had long hair falling to her waist, and she really was extremely beautiful. And in that way, Mr. Bhutto, Zulfikar Bhutto, used to keep on coming to our house, his mother, his father, his sisters, you know, Manna, whose real name was Munawar, and the other one, Mamtaz. And of course, I had heard from childhood about the third sister, whose name was Benazir, and who had died as a young girl when she was in school. So these are some very big memories, and just seeing the Bhutto house just now really brought it all back to life to me, and I really started, you know, getting very emotional about it. So anyway, but today we are going to talk about another very distinguished Bhutto, and of course, you know, that is Benazir. So basically, you know, it's a very sad reality of the subcontinent that our politicians, that our people, they are still living in the age of the Mughals. And they think that a person who becomes a president or the prime minister he takes it for granted that after him his place will be taken by his wife or his son or his daughter. And he starts the business of grooming his successor while he's still in office. And he's always confident that his dynasty is going to continue. So this is true not only of Pakistan but of our neighboring countries like India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, with whom we share a large part of our history. So that is why I brought this up, because there are a large number of people in the world who think that Benazir Bhutto was also part of that same syndrome, that just because her father was the prime minister, so she had to become the prime minister, or because her grandfather was in politics, so that's why she also came in politics. But what I want to prove today is that it's not really like that. I want to prove that Benazir was a leader in her own right. Even if her father had not been a leader, even if her grandfather had not been a leader, she would have made a name for herself by her own abilities and by her own hard work. So, coming now to Benazir, as we know, she was a girl who was born in the lap of luxury. She belonged to a powerful and privileged family. She had great wealth, palatial homes, armies of servants, and she was a pampered child who was doted upon by her parents and her grandparents and given everything that her heart desired, and the best of schooling, the best of education, the best schools in Pakistan, you know, the Convent of Jesus and Mary, Presentation Convent, KGS, and then of course Harvard and Oxford. So yes, she was, we may say, the living example of what we call the spoiled little rich girl. And her behavior and her lifestyle, as she says herself in her book, they were like that. She was very carefree, of course, and her life was a round of fun, enjoyment, parties. And as her father became the prime minister, of course, this was all spiced up with visits abroad and meetings with foreign dignitaries, and she met Zhou Enlai and Indira Gandhi and Kissinger and of course all those great people. So that was her childhood, which she has says herself in the book, Daughter of the East, and which Shyam Bhatia has also written very graphically in his book, Goodbye Shahzadi. But ultimately, this ideal life had to change. And it changed in a very, very terrible way, because dark clouds gathered all over Pakistan, and the popularly elected leader Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, as you know, was overthrown by his own hand-picked army chief of staff, that was Ziaul Haq. And things would never be the same again, for not only for the Bhutto family, but also for the whole of Pakistan. Though educated beyond her years by her father in politics and world affairs, and giving a tough grinding in the norms of diplomacy and international relations, Benazir basically was not interested in having a political career. In fact, as she says herself in her books, her interest lay primarily in either joining the foreign service or joining the media. I'm sure very few people will remember that after returning from Oxford, after getting her degrees in politics and international law and diplomacy, she used to anchor a program on Pakistan television. Anyone remembers that? No. And she also, Bhutto tried to get her into the foreign service, but as her appointment was controversial, her appointment had to be withdrawn. However, all this changed after 1977. The country came under martial law. Bhutto was sent to prison under a trumped-up murder case, and the life of this spoiled little rich girl would never again be the same. This was the period now that saw the emergence of the new Benazir, the one who was going to distinguish himself now in her own right as a leader, out of her father's shadow. And how she did that? as her father languished in jail, the mantle of leading the party fell on her mother. So at first, Benazir was there just to help her mother, to give her help and support as she traveled all over the country to muster the people in support of democracy. But the huge public ovation given to the two ladies again proved to be too much for Zia. And he promptly clamped them in jail, and he put off the proposed general elections that he had promised to hold within 90 days for good. And this began the period of the real political education of Benazir. She remained in jail off and on, sometimes in Karachi, sometimes Sakhar, sometimes in different jails in Punjab, or else in solitary confinement in her own home. Her other siblings were all abroad, but she elected to stay behind, while her father fought for his life in jail and in the court. But, as you know, it was to no avail. He was sentenced to be hanged, and she had a last meeting with him on 3rd April 1979, a meeting that she has described very poignantly in her book, Daughter of the East. "I will never go," she said to her father, with full determination, when her father told her and her mother that they should leave the country and go abroad and start a new life for themselves. But she refused to go, and it was this determination that helped her when, after her father's hanging, she went to her father's grave, where his body had been hurriedly interred by the army authorities without even notifying his family. And she pledged that she would not rest until democracy returned to Pakistan. And this was a pledge, as you can see, which she kept and continued working on. At that moment, according to her, at Bhutto's grave, she felt the strength and the conviction of his soul entering inside her. And she promised herself that the light of hope that he had kindled would be kept alive. So this was how the new Benazir was born, a very determined, courageous, confident, fearless, and dauntless leader, and a leader that we have come to know and to admire. A leader who confronted not only one, but two dictators, and who ultimately made a place for herself in history, not only in Pakistan, but in the whole world. After Bhutto's execution, his wife Nusrat was elected as the chairperson of the Pakistan's People's Party, while Benazir continued to assist her as the political secretary. When later Nusrat Bhutto became ill and had to go abroad for treatment, Benazir became the acting chairperson, then co-chairperson, then chairperson, and finally the life chairperson of the party. But the worst was yet to come. In 1981, the movement for the restoration of democracy came into being, and simultaneously the PI plane hijacking took place. Making this as a pretext, once again, Benazir and her mother were again both sent to a prison, and she had to spend the next 3 years in various jails. The horrors of that period she has graphically recorded in her book. Especially if you read the book, you will notice the ordeal that she had to face in the Sakhar jail. The heat, the filth, the bugs, the mental torture. Even finally she mentioned that she saw a ghost. And on top of all that, there came the news that her mother was suffering from cancer. But once again, she survived all that, emerging as a stronger person until she was given permission herself to proceed abroad on medical grounds in 1984. And so began a new period of her life in London. Now this, as you know, was a time when a lesser person would have said goodbye to politics and made herself some semblance of a normal life. But this was not an ordinary person. This was Benazir. And she utilized this period of her exile to group together the supporters of PPP and organize a movement in London for the restoration of democracy in Pakistan. This was a movement that proved to be very successful, as finally Zia was compelled to hold elections in 1985, albeit on a non-party basis. However, another tragedy was yet to strike, to further test her resolve and her courage. And that was the death of her youngest brother, Shahnawaz, in mysterious circumstances during a family get-together in the south of France. And once again, it was Benazir who took it upon herself to return to Pakistan with her brother's body to bury him in the family graveyard at Larkana. And true to all expectations, once the burial was accomplished, she was arrested once again. And she was released only after 3 months due to a wave of international pressure in order to enable her to testify in a French court during the investigation of her brother's demise. After Zia was forced to lift martial law at the end of 1985, again came the moment of decision for her. And true to form, it was a very bold decision that she took. And this was her triumphant return back to Pakistan in April 1986, when more than 1 million people, in defiance of Zia, turned up to receive her at Lahore airport, followed by a huge public meeting in Iqbal Park. History was truly made that day, as all Zia's hollow claims were seen to go in the dust. And it was generally felt that Zia's days were now numbered. After being briefly arrested, she had to be released again, and she toured the whole country, mobilizing the masses. Ultimately, Zia had no option but to call for fresh elections. But before the elections could be held, as you know, he was himself killed in an air crash in August 1988. Meanwhile, Benazir's life had taken another turn. At the behest of her mother and other relatives, she agreed to an arranged marriage. Again, this was a very pragmatic and sensible decision, because as she put it herself in her book, she knew that as a political leader, all the time in the public eye, it would be very difficult for her to have a normal courtship and marriage. And she also knew how difficult it would be to survive in politics as a single woman in a country like Pakistan. You know how chauvinist we are in Pakistan. So she married Asif Zardari, had a baby, Bilawal, and it was as a new mother, when Bilawal was hardly 1 month old, that she took part in the 1988 elections and came out triumphant. And so she became the first woman prime minister of a Muslim country. History being made again, as you know, and her name will always go in history. However, things were not so simple as they appeared. The powerful troika of the President, Ghulam Ishaq Khan, the Army Chief, General Aslam Beg, and the ISI Chief, General Hamid Gul, had started working against her even before the elections were held. And they had cobbled up a new coalition of rightist political parties that was called the IGI to contest against her. But in spite of all these machinations and the plotting, the People's Party emerged as the single largest party. Even then, every attempt was made to obstruct the transfer of power to the party, and talks started being held with different parties, with different forces, so that the People's Party should not be given power. But ultimately, they had to give in, and so Benazir became the Prime Minister. We all know the story of the next 2 years. how she continued to be sidelined on major policy matters, how she was kept in the dark on important issues, how ethnic strife was created in our own home province of Sindh, until ultimately her government was dismissed a mere 2 years later on charges of corruption and incompetence. And fresh elections brought her arch-rival Nawaz Sharif to power. However, after the dismissal of the Nawaz Sharif government in 1993, Benazir got another chance at power. But even this time, she was not allowed to run her government in peace. Scandal after scandal continued to haunt her government. Ultimately, it all culminated in the killing of her brother Murtaza outside his home in Karachi in 1996. And once again, her government was arbitrarily dismissed, and this time she was given no respite. Cases of corruption were filed against her, a lot of cases. Her husband was sent to prison, and she was left with little choice but to go into voluntary exile in 1999. While Asif Zardari was sent to prison, and he was only released after 8 years, that is in 2004. Now, for a lesser person, this setback would have meant the end of all political ambitions. But again, not so for Benazir. After staying quiet for a time, she once again started taking an active part in politics, and to top it all, she had a series of meetings with her arch-rival Nawaz Sharif, who himself had by now been exiled by General Musharraf, and these meetings ultimately led to reconciliation and the signing of the Charter of Democracy. Not only that, she also had meetings with General Musharraf, after which, as you know, corruption cases against her, which of course had no substance in them, they were dropped, and the way was paved for her return to Pakistan and to contest elections, leading to a third term as Prime Minister. She returned in October 2007, and again, many of you would remember that return. It was really a great time once again, and that return was reminiscent of her triumphant landing in Lahore in 1986. There was joy all around, there was rejoicing, there was a lot of optimism among the people, even though she had been warned that her life was in danger. But Benazir was Benazir, brave and bold and dauntless. True to expectation, there was a blast during her procession in Karachi, and at least 130 people were killed and several hundreds wounded. But true to form, Benazir was irrepressible. She, in spite of the danger to her life, she continued to address rallies and meetings, and to meet her beloved Awam without any fear for her own safety. Until that fateful last gathering of 27 December in Rawalpindi, when happy and triumphant, she came out of the meeting into her bulletproof car, but she could not resist that last temptation to look out of the sunroof of the vehicle and to wave to the excited crowd. So then you know exactly what happened, but what really happened. 3.5 years have gone by, but we are no closer to the answer in spite of all the commissions and in spite of all the investigations and everything that was done. Will we ever know? But one thing we do know, that Benazir will always live on. She will live on in our hearts. She will never be forgotten. She will always be remembered in history as a great leader, a courageous and determined woman, and most of all, as a wonderful daughter, a loving sister, an ideal wife, and a devoted mother. So, G.A. Benazir and G.A. Bhutto. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kazi, for this personal and historical account of Ms. Benazir Bhutto's life and times. I would now request Dr. Jalbani to present a token of appreciation to our distinguished guest, Dr. Kazi, for being here with us today.